Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sovereign Helper podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you. My name is Lisa Espinosa, and I'm a spiritual career coach for helpers. So, whether you are in the wellness field, maybe you're a therapist or a coach, or in the medical field, or retired or semi-retired, or in any career path, but you know that you have the heart of a helper. You are here to be an example of what's possible, to make a difference, to usher in transformation, to bring about creative solutions, to share your books, your artwork, your healing modalities, to uplift the world just by your presence. So if that's you, you're in the right place. And if you're like, why am I here? That doesn't sound like me, then it might very well be you and you just haven't recognized it. So sometimes that happens. I have had consultations recently with these amazing women who come in and they're like, well, I'm not really a helper, but I'm really drawn to your work. And we start talking and they're absolutely a helper. I just use that label because that's what seems to encompass the people, the change makers, the visionaries that I'm here to support. So, welcome. Today is episode 154, and we're going to talk about a core wound that many helpers have. In fact, I would say that if you are a human, if you have a human body and you are a helper, you have this wound. Now, you might have already worked very much on healing it. It might not be very strong in you, or it might. I find that for myself, it comes and goes. And that's actually what I think happens for most helpers is that you get to a better place with it, and then you're going to take the next, you're going to up level. Your soul's guiding you to step outside of your comfort zone. You're being prepared to serve more people, to create more impact, and then it comes back again, that wound of self-doubt. So today I'm going to talk about what does it mean when I talk about self-doubt, why so many helpers are plagued by this. I think I really want to call it's almost like a virus. If you think of it as a virus of self-doubt, why do so many helpers catch it? Why do so many helpers have it? And I'm going to really help you understand the difference between being in self-doubt and being in uncertainty, because they're very different vibrations. And then also, I'm going to talk about why often we use self-doubt as a way to protect ourselves. And then finally, I have my notes here because I want to make sure I don't forget anything. Well, I'll give you some examples of how self-doubt shows up for helpers. I know that personally because I have been stricken by this virus of self-doubt many a time. And also with all the work I do with my clients and my students and this work that I've been doing now for 16 years. And at the end, I'm going to share like a prescription, right? A 4-step process to help you when you catch yourself in self-doubt. So if you missed the episode last week, I gave a little intro about these podcasts, well, not just the podcast episodes, but everything I'm teaching. Really, I have this deep prayer that it's, when I asked my soul, when I sat in meditation, when I sat in contemplation, what do the helpers need to hear? And so this is one of them. So first I want to share personally, self-doubt is something that plagued me for years. And I'm not suggesting in any way that I never have self-doubt. Of course, it still comes up. But there was a time in my life, I would say the first 25 years of my life for sure, where it was like a constant. It was debilitating. It had me looking outside of myself for answers always. It was something that created a lot of anxiety in my body. And I would always be saying out of my mouth the sentence, I don't know, would come up. It was just like a habit. It was like a mantra. I've shared this before in other things, but it's important to repeat here. And I didn't even realize that I would be saying like, oh, I don't know. Or I would be saying it in my head. I don't know how to do this. I don't know the right answer. I don't know what I should do. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if my ideas are good. I don't know if my intuition is right. And I remember years ago, my husband, we've been together now 25 years, so it was a long time ago, like in the beginning. about relationship, he pointed out, he was like, Lisa, I often, like, he would ask me, like, what's wrong, or what are you feeling? And I'd be like, I don't know. And he's like, I ask you a question and you say, I don't know. But then right after you say, I don't know, you give me the answer. Like, you do know. And I was like, and he said it very lovingly. It wasn't like a judgment, it was an observation. And I really heard that. And I was like, he's right. It's like, it was almost like I had to preface everything with, I don't know. But here's my answer. And that started, and I think that was the first moment where I consciously was like, I've got to stop this. Like, this isn't helpful. And so I want you to know that if this is something, if self doubt is something that you find crippling or that you realize can really hinder your progress or sometimes paralyze you, you're not alone. I have felt that so much. And like I said, it still catches me off guard at times. And it's always when I'm about to go to the next level. And in my clock, it says 11:11 as I'm saying that. So that's awesome. That's a powerful, like, exclamation marks from the universe. So when I looked up the definition of self-doubt, it says lack of confidence in oneself and one's abilities. That's how the Oxford Dictionary defines it. And so I want you to think about self-doubt. Self-doubt is, I really believe, is a symptom of the way that helpers, especially as women, have been disempowered throughout history. It has been through religion, through lots of ways. There has just been this story that as a helper, yes, you're here to help, but you're also here to follow directions, to follow orders, to be in servitude, to sacrifice, maybe to even martyr yourself. In fact, for so many years, hundreds more years, being a martyr, dying for your cause was applauded. And so if you're a woman and you're a mother, if you add that to it, then it's even more, right? It's like, so it's almost like self-doubt became part of what being a good helper included. You're never too sure of yourself. You never show off. And it's part of what, I call the martyr helper identity, self-doubt. And why was that? Why? So right now I'm giving you the why of it. Why was that? Because there was powerful forces that wanted to keep helpers disempowered. Why? Because we're so powerful. That's the paradox. Why would there be so much effort put into disempowering people who are here called to be of service, like true service? Because you come actually with so much power. Now, everybody does. So I want to be really clear that I'm not saying helpers are different or better than, or God loves us more, or anything like that. It's just that as a helper, we do have a divine mission. You do. It's like a divine assignment that you volunteered for, right? You said, yep, send me down to earth during these times that are so polarized, that can feel so heavy and dark and confusing and all of the things. And I'm going to go down there and be an example of what's possible. Or I'm going to go down there and radiate compassion or joy or hope or create a new healing modality or whatever it is you do, right? And so there has been an agenda to disempower helpers. So whenever we experience self-doubt, what we're experiencing actually is mistrust of our own power. It's this, and it might be very unconscious. So for some of you, it's like it might be very clear. And for some of you, you might be like, I had never thought of that, but it's in there, right? This disempowerment. It's like this doubt of, it's a couple of things. Doubt that you have power, but I actually don't think it's that. I don't think that it's doubt that you're powerful. It's fear of your power. Why? Because for so long, especially for females, of course, men can experience this too, but I'm just going to direct it to the feminine, let's say. There has been this agenda to say our power is bad, is toxic, is like you can't trust it. And so self-doubt is really a symptom of that. And yes, like, Jill is saying, kryptonite. Yes, there's so many kryptonites for helpers. Self-doubt is one, perfectionism is one. And so it's really important to understand that, like, oh, okay, whenever I'm in self-doubt, it's trying to take me out of my power. And it's very sneaky because this is the thing, and I want you to really hear this. Self-doubt is not the same as being in uncertainty. This is where helpers can get really confused, especially when you are really connected with your spiritual path. Because there's a lot of conversation in the spiritual path, and it's so true that as on the spiritual path, one of the things that we must master is learning to be with uncertainty. Right? And our egoic brain hates uncertainty. It's like, I want to know when my clients are coming. I want to know how much money I'm going to make this year. I want to know if the diagnosis is going to turn out okay and I'm going to heal this. I want to know if, fill in the blank. I want to know if the world's going to be okay. And so uncertainty is being with uncertainty. And that's so funny because now I looked at my phone and it says 11:11. So my laptop, for whatever reason, cannot stay in the right time. That's why I have my phone here too. But 2:11:11s. Okay, I got sidetracked by that. But uncertainty we must master, right? To be able to feel the discomfort that our ego wants to be certain, but we don't have the whole blueprint in front of us. And our soul is certain though. Your soul is infinitely certain. Your soul never experiences self-doubt. So the way you master uncertainty is to lean into the certainty of your soul. I think I did a whole podcast episode about that, right? That your soul is never uncertain. But sometimes, well-intentionally, we confuse self-doubt with being with uncertainty. But I want you to think about how different it feels in your body. When you are practicing expanding your capacity to be with uncertainty, it feels very different. So for example, for me, right? This has been a journey I've been on for like years and years and years, lifetimes. But I've shared many times, right? As when Greg, my husband, got diagnosed with cancer, it was like this next level. Like, it's like my soul put me in this whole like new ocean of uncertainty, right? It's like, what if insurance doesn't cover this, right? Because we had just moved to Mexico. What if he has horrible, response to chemo? What if the other medication doesn't work? I mean, like literally thousands of uncertainty possibilities that my ego, my intellect brought up. And so I've been, right, as last year, and it continues, but last year was like PhD level of like learning to be with that uncertainty and continue to lean into the certainty of my soul. That feels very different. That feels very, for me, when I'm in that process, it feels very tender. It feels very open. I feel very connected to humanity. I feel very compassionate. There's a humility that comes up that's not like fake humility or ego humility or like I'm beating myself up humility. It's like this tenderness. So that feels, and within that, I can still feel lots of joy. I can feel all sorts of things. That's being with uncertainty. Self-doubt feels very different. Self-doubt is there's a constriction, there's a shrinking. And I'm saying how I notice it for me and clients, but you find your own words because it's really important for you to start to understand the frequency of self-doubt. Or maybe for you, when you feel it, you buffer. You're like, this feels horrible. So I'm going to take action. I'm going to go try to control the outcome. I'm going to do. And that's something that a lot of helpers, that we kind of tend to fall into two categories, either paralysis, I feel self-doubt, so I can't do anything, or overaction. I'm going to overcome it. I'm just going to take action. I tend to be on that side, but I can also get paralyzed. So understand the difference. And because being with uncertainty and same with reflecting, right? Reflection is such an important part of the spiritual path. We tend to confuse those with self-doubt. We tend to think, well, I'm just reflecting when we're actually in self-doubt. So I want you to really understand the difference, because then you can catch it. Because for most of you, you've been reflecting, aligning on the spiritual path for years and years and years. And so for you, it might be more subtle, right? So, 25 years ago, when self-doubt was so crippling for me that I was literally like paralyzed, it was very obvious to see it. Now that I've done so much work and have, have been on this path for so many years, I have to be more on myself, right? Like I have to really be like, oh, wait, I'm catching that subtlety of when self-doubt comes. So reflection, uncertainty, self-doubt are very different things. And sometimes we think, well, if I let go of self-doubt, doesn't that mean that I'm not going to reflect, that I'm not going to get better, that I'm going to become a narcissist? No, it means none of those things. Again, those are all the things that were used, particularly by religious programming. Even if you're not religious, even if you're not part of a religion, we live in a world in that soup of the dogma that has kind of elevated self-doubt as a worthy thing. And so uncertainty is natural. The being with uncertainty is natural, is part of the process. It actually leads to creativity. It requires presence. It opens your heart. Self-doubt disconnects you. Not only disconnects you from your soul, but disconnects you from others. It really does. So what I want you to know, and I think I'll do another podcast episode, I feel like I need to do an updated one on uncertainty, but I want you to know this. Helpers are meant to thrive in uncertain times. Like this is what, I know this is said so much, it's almost become like cliche, but these are the times we've been preparing for. I was just having this conversation with a client yesterday. Like every challenge you've gone through, everything you've experienced in your life that has like literally you've marinated in uncertainty has been preparation for these times so that you can be at the forefront. So we're meant to thrive in uncertainty. But self-doubt, that's a whole other thing. That is disempowerment. And I want you to remember that your soul doesn't have any doubts about you. Doesn't doubt your wisdom, doesn't doubt your capabilities. And so this leads me to, how does self-doubt show up in your life? This is what you want to really identify. And when I get to the process at the end, there'll be something about this. But this is how I notice it comes up for helpers often. One, doubting your intuition, right? That you might have that intuitive sense of something, but you doubt it. Am I making it up? Is that real? Well, that person I really respect thinks that, so I should do it that way, right? There's that. Doubting your motives. This is something that for me was a really big thing. And I've noticed it for some clients as well, which is so fascinating and tragic. As helpers, you might have had an initiation, a challenging experience that was part of your training where usually someone that was supposed to take care of you or protect you and love you and tell you how amazing you are, really did the opposite and said, either through physical force or through words, conveyed to you that you were wrong, you were bad, you were manipulative, you were selfish. And so you might have internalized, like, maybe I am a bad person. I mean, that was something that was my kryptonite for a long time. Now, it could still sometimes like suddenly hit me, but I can come out of it a lot faster. But it was this like, I'm a bad person, I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad. And so I would doubt my motives. And it was the most crazy making thing because I knew my motives. Obviously, I was like, no, but yet there were these voices in my head that were so loud. And so there can be that, just doubting your motives, right? Doubting your decisions. That's a huge one. And I want to say this, and I also did another podcast episode about this, but if you are committed to following your soul's guidance, if that is your commitment, if you're like, I am here to be of service, I am here to help humanity, I want to do it in a way that blesses me in the process, I want to do it from overflow, not overwhelm. If you have that commitment, you have to trust that your soul will correct any so-called mistakes. That is one thing we just really need to embrace. Like, that's very important, because when we put that pressure, like I must make the right decision. If I don't make the right decision, everything's going to fall apart. That is coming from the ego structure. Your soul actually knows there are so many ways to get you the result. And yes, there are times, of course, where there's a very clear, like, this is the path. But even if you choose wrong, like years ago, this is something my soul told me, because I was just losing sleep. I was just like, oh my gosh. And my soul would keep reminding me, Lisa, you have such a pure intention to follow your soul's guidance. Trust that even if you decide wrongly, the divine, your ascended master guides, your allies, your enlightened ancestor, your angels, they will correct the decision. And so remember that. But with decisions specifically, you want to have a decision-making protocol. And I think that will be like, literally, I just want you to know, as an aside, in my phone, I have a notes, that notes app. I have a list of all the podcast episodes I want to do this year. And one of them is on decisions, helping you create your decision-making protocol. But what I want to share with you right now is, when you make decisions, that is how you express your power. Making decisions is powerful. And again, it keeps coming back to power, like trusting your power, owning your power, embodying your power, improving your relationship with your power. And then doubting, of course, your ability or your readiness. And so just kind of when you listen to that, doubting intuition, doubting your motives, doubting your decisions, doubting your ability or your readiness, notice which one is the one that maybe right now, in this season, it's like, ooh, that one's the one that's up for me right now. Like that one. Or maybe you realize, oh, that's the one I've been training for. Like, so last year again was also a big increasing my self-concept about my abilities, right? My abilities. It wasn't so much that my abilities increased. I had the ability. It's just my trust in them increased. So, and if you want to share in the chat or in the comments, which ones of these you're like, and maybe it's a one I haven't named, there's many others, but which one is like, oh, I'm feeling that one. And if you feel that there's one that's coming up for you, it's because your soul's saying you're ready. You're ready to take that to the next level of healing. Like, this is the one that your soul is guiding you to clear up as you move into, as we really get ready, right? February 17th to start the year of the fire horse. We're already in a year one. We've already started a new 9-year cycle, but we're still in the final shedding of the year of the snake. And I don't know about you, but I literally feel like every day it's like classes in session, right? But it's different. It's not so much that, and I'll talk about this in the masterclass next week. It's not so much that there's all these final exams. Like I've had to really hear this from my soul. I'm not being tested anymore. And I want you to hear that too. However, we have to keep choosing our sovereign helper identity. Now it's like, just continue to choose that higher identity. Choose the version of you that isn't plagued by self-doubt, isn't stopped by self-doubt. The version of you that notices it and remembers, oh, I know what this is. This isn't coming from my soul. This is a way to try to disempower me. I know the frequency of this. This is different than being with uncertainty. This is different than being in reflection. And so I want to share with you this practice. Okay? But before that, I want to share, yes, Robin, I'm not being tested anymore. When I heard that, it was like, wow, because I do think, and thank you for naming that, Robin, like for highlighting that. I think that'll be another podcast episode. These are all going to be classes or lives that I do when I'm walking around Mexico and taking you with me. Is that because as helpers, we have been tested a lot. But the test, I just want you to remember, the test was, we made the tests. It's not God that's testing us because we're bad or because we signed up to have a really hard life. Like we literally said, okay, I'm going to be a helper and I'm going to design my curriculum. These are the tests that I'm going to have when I go down into my human body. And, because we've so been in that tested, we're being tested, that now I feel Mother Mary, the Divine Mother, has really come to me and said, okay, Lisa, goes back to that teaching of the priestesses have suffered enough. You are blessed and you are a blessing. And then now it's like, you're not being tested anymore. You're being guided. You're just being given a choice. That's it. No more tests. We passed the tests. However, we still have an ego structure. So now we just need to remember, oh, I'm not being tested anymore. I already passed the test. I just need to remind myself. I need to remember, like, oh, I can choose the certainty of my soul. I can choose refine and reflect as you go. And Jill, you're saying like, yeah, there's tendrils, right? You still feel the tendrils. And that's a beautiful word, like the tendrils. Because this is the thing, as long as we have a human body, all of this is going to still be part of the journey. Once we ascend and we release our human physical body and we don't have an ego structure, then we won't be dealing with that. But we have it right now, and we signed up to have it because the world needs human helpers, humans that are aligned with their soul, that are being led by their soul. So there always will be tendrils, but it's like the more we can anchor into these truths. So, and I love, Jill, that you both, Jill and Robin, you're both, I know there's more of you, but those are the names. Roxana, I'm so glad you're here as well. But I'm seeing you, Jill and Robin, and it's like, and you both like birthed amazing books that are helping humanity. And Jill, you're birthing another book. And Robin, I know you're also having lots of book babies. So I just like love that. Like I'm seeing both of you, and I'm just seeing like books. So I just wanted to name that. So before I give you the practice, one more thing. I also want you to know that self-doubt can become addictive. It really can. It can be something we can indulge in, just like we can indulge in sugar or alcohol or drugs or movies or overworking. When I use the word indulge and addictive, I mean when it goes past it's not saying you shouldn't have sugar, right? I mean, some of you might decide that, but it's more like when we're using an addiction, it's a way to cover something, a way that our ego structure has thought it can protect us. That's all an addiction is, right? An addiction is just a protective mechanism. And so self-doubt can become an addiction. And don't judge yourself for this, right? We're not going to judge ourselves, but just to know like, oh, but unlike other addictions, it's very much accepted in society. Sometimes those are the hardest addictions to heal because nobody's telling us it's an addiction, because we can bond with other people with it, because some religions might say that's a good thing for you to have. It's good for you to have self-doubt. And so it's important to, if that resonates with you, you want to always start asking yourself, well, what is self-doubt protecting me from, or think it's protecting me from? If I just spin out in self-doubt, how is the ego thinking that's protecting me? And it's usually because it's keeping us the same. It's keeping us from putting ourselves out there. It's keeping us from what we think will be public judgment or shaming. And so it's important to be on our brain like, oh yeah, self-doubt can also be addictive. And that's right, it thinks it's protecting me. And so there's a lot of, for helpers, there's the addiction of self-doubt. Perfectionism is another addiction. Codependency. Oh my gosh. And talk about socially accepted addictions, especially for helpers. Oh, you're like sacrificing yourself and you don't have time for your creations because you're so busy helping others. That's so amazing. You're such a good helper. But codependency is not service, is not true service. That's another episode. We'll go into that. So let's go into the practice. Okay. So first, there's 4 steps. And the first step is you're going to notice when you're caught in self-doubt, no matter how subtle. And sometimes that's the hardest place, when it's subtle. But also, if you're in the grips of it, that can be really challenging too. And when you notice it, you're going to notice it. And I want you to right away remind yourself that self-doubt is a way to minimize your power. And so create an affirmation. I just put here, it is safe for me to be powerful. It could be, I trust my power. I embrace my power. My power. My power comes from my soul. I mean, you come up with yours, but you want to just declare in that moment, I know what's happening. Self-doubt is leaking my power. I trust my power. My power is safe. I'm ready to be powerful. So that's the first step. And again, I'm giving you examples. You will make this your own, right? But you'll notice that. Number 2 is you're going to ask, how is self-doubt protecting me? And really the question is, how is self-doubt thinking it's protecting me? Is it keeping me small? Is it avoiding discomfort? Is it keeping me from taking an action that I know is going to kind of put me in the spotlight? Is it keeping me loyal to my loved ones and family? Is it keeping me safe so people don't judge me and think like, oh, she thinks she's so too good for us or whatever it is? So that's step 2 is you're going to ask, get curious, how is self-doubt protecting me in this moment? And number 3, if you notice, when you notice that, because self-doubt is always followed by some sort of sentence along the lines of, I don't know. Shift that to, I'm figuring it out. That can be immediate relief. It's like, I don't know what decision to make. Well, I don't know. Like, I'm figuring it out. That's very different. That immediately starts to bring you back into alignment. And so then the final step is you return, you breathe, and you come back into your soul certainty. Step 4 really just happens naturally when you do the first 3 steps, I have to say. Because your soul certainty is always there. It's always there, no matter how much in the grips of uncertainty you are. So when I look back, when Greg first got diagnosed, and like those first 3 months, I was just like walking with, like, it felt like I had a cannonball on my chest. Like I was just like in deep shock and grief and disbelief and uncertainty and self-doubt. I think that was probably causing the most suffering. And so, and that was an experience that it wasn't like I could just do these 4 steps and I was done, right? I had to like, it was a process. It was a process. It was a process. It was a process. But even when I was in the grips of the most self-doubt, where I couldn't sleep and I was literally sweating, you know how they have that story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane before the crucifixion? And of course, all the Bible stories, you have to like read through them and see what's the whole full story. But that's always touched me. Like when he's in the garden and he's like praying and I'm imagining, you know, he's such a divine being, but he also he agreed to have a human body and have an ego. And he was like, oh my gosh. And I can imagine a moment where he was just like, you know, where it says like, you know, where he says, God, your will be done, basically. But he's in that initiation, right? And I mean, I'm not saying I was about to get crucified, but it felt very intense. But even in your grips, whatever your deepest initiations have been, where you have felt the most self-doubt, because that's what I was getting ready to say. I was like, I couldn't even breathe right for like 3 months, it felt like, right? And I would wake up sweating at night. I was just in the grips of it. But even then, my soul certainty was there. Maybe I couldn't access it fully, for sure. And so that's why I'm saying step 4 just happens because it's already there. The first 3 steps are helping your ego structure, your humanity come back into that truth. So again, number 1, you're going to name it. I'm feeling self-doubt. Oh, I know what this is. This is a power leak. So I'm going to affirm it is safe to be powerful. I love my power. I can trust my power. My power comes from God, from Source, from the Divine Mother. You use your own words. Step 2 is you're going to ask, how is this self-doubt protecting me? And it's really, you could even ask, how is this self-doubt protecting my ego? Because that's what it's doing. It's actually not protecting you. And you're going to name it. Again, no judgment. Like, oh my gosh, this is how it's protecting me. This is how it thinks it's protecting me. And number three, you're going to shift the language from I don't know to I'm figuring it out. My soul knows. I might not have consciously received the answer yet, but I know my soul knows. And then four, just allow the certainty of your soul to fill you up with its vibration. So to finish this, know that self-doubt is not who you are. It is a virus. It is a kryptonite. I think it is an intentional poison that was injected into the soul of helpers. I know that sounds very dramatic, but that's how I think of it. Right? And it can be healed. It can be like a little thing. Oh, there's self-doubt. Of course, I still have a human body. I still have an ego structure. That's okay. You're going to be on the bus with me or the flying carpet, the magical flying carpet. That's the image that's been coming to me lately, which is so interesting. But it's not going to run the show. Like it's going to be there, but it's not going to run the show. And so as I end, I want to pull a card. I want to invite you to next week's masterclass, New Year, New Way to Serve, the identity shift you've been preparing for. This is the first masterclass. This is the Sovereign Helper Trailblazer series. The Trailblazer series, because that's the word. Last year we were breaking through. This year we're the Trailblazers. It sounds like a basketball team. There might be a basketball team called that. But so I want you to, so in this masterclass, I'm going to talk about, first of all, how have you been preparing for this shift? It's important for you to know that consciously. Because when you know, then your ego can't trick you into like, oh, it's going to take so long, or oh, I'm just getting started, or oh, it's so much work. No, you've been preparing for this, okay? And two, I'm going to really talk about the sovereign helper ecosystem, the internal ecosystem of a sovereign helper, the thoughts, the feelings, the behaviors, the actions that make up that system, and compare it to the martyr helper ecosystem. Because again, remember what I said earlier, we're not being tested anymore. But your ego, the false matrix, the world wants us to feel like we're always being tested and we're going to fail the test. And we have to cram to pass the test. We already did it. We passed the test. But now it's a choice. We have free will. And now we get to decide, am I going to really commit and devote myself to being in that sovereign helper ecosystem? Or am I going to still play in the martyr helper ecosystem? So I'm very excited about that masterclass. It is free. Sign up for that. You will get the replay for 7 days. If you're my client, of course, you will have the replay for as long as you're in my coaching programs. You have access to those. Also, Sovereignty Consult. Oh my gosh, I've had so many this year already, just amazing women. And I want to say something. When I say amazing women, I realize, because it came up recently, please know that whatever you have done or not done in your life, I consider you amazing. This isn't about like, oh, my clients are only my clients if they've accomplished this and this and this and this and that. I mean, many of my clients have accomplished many beautiful things, but it's not about that. It's if your heart calls you to have this conversation with me, to show up, I know it requires courage. I understand that. Not because I'm scary in any way, because I'm not, but because you're entering a place of sovereignty, right? You're entering a place to really like listen to your soul and hear what your soul has to say, which is only loving things, I promise you. But the ego structure, again, wants to keep us in self-doubt. So it's like, oh, let me just wait another year. Oh, I'm not ready. Things are so busy right now. Like, this is the time. There's no better time than the present. So I still have slots available for January. So I would love to see you. It's a free 1-hour consultation. I'll put the link for that. So let's pull some cards and then we'll be done. Beautiful Roxanne and Robin and Jill and anyone else who's here. So this is from the Wild Woman. Wild Woman Rising. We are all wild women rising on our fire horse. All right, here we go. Number 19. Listen the world open. Look at this. I'm so drawn, that light on the back of her heart. So it's like wings emerging from your heart, I'm hearing wounds from the root core wounds being healed. Listen, like those little bluebirds. Listen. Listen to your soul's like whispers that are all just said with so much certainty and trust and faith. This card also so reminds me of Mother Mary. There's just something about the bluebirds. And then I'm going to do a gateway light activation oracle. And you. Okay, what is the portal we're all walking through today? Let's see. Look at this. Holy Grail. Okay, we're walking into our Holy Grail. Inner discovery, finding sacredness. I mean, this is so perfect. You are what you seek. And look at this Holy Grail, how it's overpouring. If you did not hear, my word for the year is surplus. I resisted it when Guadalupe told me this. I was like, surplus? This sounds like a warehouse. But no, it's like overflow. This is you. This is the helper heart. It's supposed to be so filled with light, with love, with grace, with your own beautiful soul that it overflows. And this is where your service comes from. So it's not depletion. This is how we create more impact with less effort. All right, sending you so much love. Can't wait to see you next week. Podcast episode next week. First masterclass of 2026. Sovereignty consult. If you want to sign up, I would love to connect with you and talk to you. And I'm sending you all so much love. Bye.